But what is this genetic testing, and what service do these companies offer to the consumer?
Weird thing about consumers.
Yeah, well, I mean, consumers of information.
Yeah.
So what is genetic testing in the context of these companies? Yeah, so it's a company that you submit your DNA to, and they go through and they genotype it at certain spots for genes or variants of genes that have been shown to, in some study, correlate with some increased risk or decreased risks of various diseases and traits. So they can provide you with totally mundane information about, like, hey, you have blue eyes because you have these alleles for your blue eyes. But they can also provide you with information about, diseases that you may have now, or diseases that, because of your genetics, you might be predisposed to get in the future. So what was weird about the results that she got back from the three companies? What was that?
They varied from each other.
They were all different, right? And it's kind of it's interesting because it was the exact same result that Francis Collins got in that video, right? He sent it off to three companies, and then one of them said lower than average risk, one of them said average, and one of them said higher than average risk. So given that this seems to be a common occurrence for people getting genetic information from these testing services, do you think that there's a use for this type of test at this point?
Well, if you could, there's a use, especially if you throw it to all the different ones, and if you find one that comes back common in all the, like he did, there was one thing, I forgot what it was, but there was one thing that was common in all of them. So he knows pretty certainly, okay, this is something I need to look out for.
Or they're all wrong in the same way.
I mean, an increased chance, though. You have an increased chance of that being accurate if multiple sources are agreeing, but that's kind of sort of a take with a grain of salt kind of mentality.
Sure. Now, do you think it's weird that you could send, do you think of science as being, fairly rigorous, giving you fairly reproducible results? So is it kind of weird that you send it off to these, companies that employ hotshot geneticists to do this stuff that can give you different results? I mean, it's kind of like you go to the doctor, you get your blood drawn, and you have your blood sent to 3 different places to be tested for cholesterol, and one place says low cholesterol, one says average, and one says high. That would be weird and call into question the entire enterprise of testing, right? So how could this be going on? Yeah.
I think that it's not useful because all of them, first of all, they look at like 0.1% of all of our genes, and all of them can look at different pieces and they can all take the same thing, but out of different pieces, so it's not consistent information or data that they're reporting back.
So they're choosing to look at different snippets of information and use those different snippets of information to figure out something about risk for disease. Yeah.
Do they keep you on record? Like, do they just keep all that info in their servers now?
Surely they do, because you access it through the web. So I'm sure that they host it on their server.
So that seems pretty important because it's like future proof. Maybe we're trusting that 50, 100 years down the line, this will actually be really important, and so you're kind of getting ahead of the curve and just getting your information out there.
Yeah. So you might be. So you're saying it's nice that the data will be there in the future because you're
just like doing the legwork now, just getting you'll be the same. They'll know how to interpret it better in 2050.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I mean, in some sense, you may be doing a service to society because you're getting tested where now when the tests aren't very robust, but because of millions and millions of people being tested and then being tracked for disease, maybe we'll actually have a better sense in the future. So we don't get 3 different results from 3 different companies. Yeah, Jeff, you had.
Yeah, so I actually did the 23andMe in the fall. So that was after they had stopped doing the disease stuff. But when you do it, there's a voluntary health survey you can do for exactly that reason. So you kind of go through it and say, okay, here are all my known medical issues. And then that goes into their big database. So they can use that to try to actually do science and make correlations between different gene variants and diseases. And then they
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so hopefully that anonymity is maintained, because there's been some studies lately that have been able to figure out, based on really small amounts of information like sex, age, ethnicity, and then genetic information, like basically piece together whose sequence it actually is. And so anonymity in the context of genetic information might, and I think in the video they alluded to this, like you might need to have a whole different new way to guarantee anonymity, that in the past just having your age and your sex and your location where you live, you can still be anonymous. With genetic information, you may not be able to be. So, does that make you guys scared? You guys are very trusting. So what do you think about the idea that the FDA is now regulating this and banning it, as Jeff was talking about, where you can't get this like direct-to-consumer medical predictive information? Do you think that that's good, that's bad, that's sort of impeding progress? What do you guys think?
I think yes and no. Because the industry is still relatively young, there's not a whole lot of development and standardization as it's needed to be able to conclusively get multiple companies to even agree on a close approximate basis. I mean, especially if we can get such extreme disagreements on something that can be an extremely big disease like cancer or like Alzheimer's or something. And so because of that, I think it can do more harm than good, because you're not really sure which way you're going to go. And like my peer said, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But most people aren't going to take things with a grain of salt. And I think that can lead to overprescription and overuse of certain drugs, and lead to, like, we hear about cases sometimes where patients are almost pressuring their doctor to give them unnecessary medication, and I'd hate to see more of that happen.
Sure. You like going to the doctor, like, I have this gene variant that says I have an increase, I'm gonna have increased risk of heart disease. Like, you have to give me that, you know, cholesterol lowering medication, even though I don't have high cholesterol. Yeah.
Mine's just sort of more of a speculation question. I think that, but at least in my mind, this is all kind of comes back to the thing: is society ready for the kind of discretion that's needed for this kind of? I mean, it's the same argument that was brought up in that video, that for this kind of information, like, yeah, if they were ready, if a person could be ready, like a person who's able to discern, you know, and cognitively think about all the things, but like you said, like, but lots of people won't do that. I almost feel like there should be a test for a person, and they have to be able to pass that test in order to get this information, like a cognitive test. Because honestly, if you're the kind of person that would be likely to go do something like that in a doctor's office, you probably shouldn't be trusted with that even your own information about yourself. It's humanity. Is humanity ready for this kind of a step? That's the real determining factor behind whether all of this is good or bad.
Yeah. How many of you guys ever self-diagnose using WebMD and things like that? I think many people have been guilty of, like, Googling a symptom and then, well, yeah, and then like being like, well, okay, and then maybe going to the doctor because you think you have a certain disease. So I think that a surprising number of people, maybe even the majority, would maybe not be ready, you know, cognitive test or not be ready to utilize this information in a safe manner. Yeah.
But then that also poses the question, like, kind of in parallel to that, is humanity or society ever going to be ready? And like, what is like the noble, valiant effort behind like gene testing? Because I mean, that it could be something that, quite honestly, shouldn't ever be known.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah. No, I mean, I think there is, and it's great. Like, this is really. I mean, this is great ideas and topics you guys are discussing, because that's kind of how I view it as well. It's like there's good and bad things to it. I don't know if we're ready now. I don't know if we'll ever be ready. But at the same time, I do think as a human, you should have the right, if somebody can get information about your genetics, to get access to it if you want it. So it's like I sort of I see both sides of it. You know, like maybe we're not ready. I mean, I have a strong background in genetics, but like, I mean, I would probably not be ready to figure out exactly what all these gene variants mean. Yeah.
So I wanted some clarification. The girl in the video, the little girl who they had to formulate some kind of drug to match her issues with her gene.
Yeah.
Did they sequence her whole gene and not these little bits and pieces? Or?
I believe that, yeah, because her dad worked for some biotech company, and so I think they sequenced her whole genome.
So it was a positive result because they did that.
Yeah, and so they were investing like a much larger amount of resources for discovery for that case than just 23andMe, you know, sequencing, I don't know, 10,000 like single letters